Thrilled, and I'm thrilled to bring Rachel Vilsack back in, who is going to highlight some of the work we're doing with 2 states in particular, and I'll let Rachel take it from here.
Thanks, Scott. States have made incredible progress over the last 5 years to understand the value of credential transparency and have worked to align data on credentials using a common language. Linked open data are a value and a necessity to how states are putting better tools and services into the hands of learners and workers. This session is going to showcase how 2 states are leveraging the power of CTDL and the registry to make useful information on credentials accessible to their state's residents. We're happy to welcome to the virtual stage Lesley Hirsch, who is the Assistant Commissioner for Research and Information at the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development.
Good evening, Rachel, or good afternoon, I should say. Where I am, it's evening right now. Thank you for having me, and good afternoon to all of our friends and colleagues.
Thanks, Lesley. So the work that you're doing in New Jersey has really been focused on modernization, transparency, customer protection, and quality assurance, and worker experience, specifically to address the look, the feel, the flow of how services and information are being provided to workers and learners in New Jersey. Can you tell us about the Training Explorer tool and actually show us what you've developed that leverages the CTDL and the registry?
I'd love to, Rachel. I think I need somebody to hand over the screen. There we go. So I'd love to, but before I start, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the context in which the Training Explorer was developed. I'd like to start out by telling you a little bit about our worker experience group. This is across government in New Jersey, but mainly the people in the Office of the Secretary of Higher Education and in the Department of Labor. And what we've decided to do was identify what we thought were the major problems of our technology platforms and our digital assets, and try to create a vision statement so that we would all be on the same page, so to speak, and providing a much better experience for users. The idea here was that we wanted to lower as many barriers to information and services as possible, embrace a user-centered, a radically user-centered approach, build services that at least meet the standards of in-person, provide a no wrong door experience, use plain English language, not regulations and not government speak, and then pull all of this together so that we can use analytics to understand how our audience or how our users are actually interacting with those digital tools. Last but not least, I think the really important thing here, and is super important, I think, for everybody to think about when we're trying to develop or digitalize our work in government, is using an agile approach. So here's a little bit like a spaghetti bowl, but I hope it will help to explain. This is the flow of data that's made possible by internal modernization at the Department of Labor. We moved from a paper process for approving the eligible training providers. We have about 500 eligible training providers and about 5,000 eligible training programs. We've moved to a digitized process, and we're actually not even quite live yet, but we are publishing to the Credential registry, happy to say. So all of that information goes into, it's called IGX up here, IntelliGrants. That's provider and program information, as well as student social security numbers for entrants and exiters every quarter. That moves into the next column, that data moves into the next column, where the data goes into a quality assurance analysis. In addition to that, we also at that point determine how eligible a training provider or training program is going to be. but the IGX provider and program information goes directly to the credential registry. We're happy to say that we've just finally met our minimum requirements and have all 5,000 plus programs on the credential registry. Now, what that registry is making possible is a daily update. We're actually sending data over to the registry via API and also ingesting data from the registry. If we go down and with that down arrow down to the Training Explorer. Really quick, I'm just going to show you that this is something that we're also undertaking, and that is a way of measuring quality. And that's our really big next hope, to work with Credential Engine to see how we can get that information up so that it's open and available for anybody to use and anybody to see. So rather than just looking at labor market outcomes, we decided that quality could be measured along 5 dimensions. And I won't read this whole slide. I'll just tell you that, alignment with demand, clearly, as Scott just mentioned, is one of the most important aspects of a training program for its success. Certainly, employment and wages are important, and we have a number of ways we're measuring employment and wage outcomes. Completion is obviously important. We also wanted to look at the financial impact on students. So whether it's on the ETPL whether it's an in-demand occupation or not, some of these programs are serving private pay students. So we want to make sure that their tuition is not grossly out of proportion with the wages they can expect, graduates can expect to make. And then last but not least, we recognize that equity is the other side of the coin from quality. And we don't have quality if it's not quality for everyone. And so we're doing a measure of equity by age group, sex, and disability status, as well as race, ethnicity. So I'm going to jump over to that, and let me see if I can do another screen share. Rachel, can you see the Training Explorer?
I can.
Awesome. So this is our landing page right now. We actually are in the midst of a beta test. We have a limited controlled release going on right now with multiple unemployment insurance claimants, giving them access to this product and doing some user testing. And so this is not the final design, but this is the design such as it is. As you can see, it's designed for the training seekers primarily, but also to help professionals who help training seekers, and also to provide information for training providers who would like to be on the eligible training provider list. So it's a search engine, and that's what it says right at top. It's front and center. I'm going to go ahead and put in a search for a welding class. And we can see that there are 60 results for welding in New Jersey. They're here with a bunch of sort of the first line of descriptive information, but also some other information on each program, the name, the school, whether it's in demand or not, whether this is an occupation in demand, which welding is, and the employment rate. These are the things that our users told us that they wanted, that were the most important to them. So we have 60 results, but let's say I would like to see whether something is available to me near my hometown, and that's my hometown. I'm going to also move down in the search bar, and I'm going to say I work during the day, and the only way I'm going to be able to do this is if I can take evening classes. And so I'll go ahead and see what happens when I look at the results. So we have 21 results now. I believe that's what we were at 60, and now we're at 21. We can see that if I move this to see the ones that have the best employment outcomes, we see Hohokus School of Trade and Technical right up at the top. But we have a wide variety of types of welding programs here, and we can actually take a look at each one of them if we want to. But I'm kind of curious whether Hudson Community College, how it compares with the Hohokus School, and why That one costs $4,000 when the Hohokus school costs $7,100. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on those two and compare them. And I can see, well, this one, I have to tell you, we don't have complete data, so the employment rates are not in, but we can see them side by side. Let's say we want to go into welding fundamentals, and here is the information about the training program. Again, this is all ingested directly from the Credential registry and updated daily. So we have information on the, unfortunately, I picked one that doesn't have an average salary or program employment rate, but we have a lot of information about the program itself. I'm kind of interested in finding out. I'd like to copy a link to this and send it to my friends. And then I'm going to also save and print this. So I'm going to, right here is asking me to copy the link. And there it is, successfully copied. I can paste that into an email. But I'm also interested in seeing what is it that welders actually do. And we can see right now we're reading directly into the National Labor Exchange that there are 16 open jobs for welders, and the median salary in New Jersey from our Occupational Employment and Wage Survey is $46,000 a year. We have other trainings that pop up at the bottom of the screen, and we can go and take a look at those if we want to. I should show you before I hand it back over to you, Rachel, that we have information about in-demand occupations. And so we might be able to take a look at, again, what is a day in the life for a web developer? How many job openings? As you can see, there are quite a few job openings, and the median salary is much higher. And again, we have more information about web development programs. There's a good deal more information, and I can't wait until this is absolutely live, which is happening in less than a month.
Thanks, Lesley, for that great demo of the Training Explorer tool. It's really clear that New Jersey is making information about credentials accessible and useful to states' residents. I know that the Training Explorer is just one part of putting the user experience first. Can you tell us about the digital portal or front door that's also being developed to support New Jersey residents in finding training jobs and career opportunities?
Absolutely. I would love to. So as you can imagine, we committed to working within those worker experience approaches, the process that we've all agreed upon. And now what we have is something that looks a little bit more like this. It's called New Jersey Career Central. I'm calling it 1.0 because this is really just the beginning. We've added a number of recommendation engines into Career Central. And so, and we're also just beginning work on some career pathway maps, working in tandem with our New Jersey Council on County Colleges. I'll go back to the internet. And here we are at New Jersey Career Central. I'm going to sign out, and then I can show you how we sign in. This can be an authenticated or an unauthenticated experience, but the real value comes here when you authenticate. In other words, provide a little bit of information about yourself. So as you can see, we tried to create a very supportive front door for New Jersey residents to see we're here for them. As you can see, we're using some plain English. We also, both of the sites are translated into Spanish. We hope to do additional languages down the road, but we have Spanish and English right now. So I'm going to go ahead and sign up or sign in. I'm not going to make you all watch me sign in, so I'm just going to use an existing login. And before I presented today, I decided I was going to portray myself as Lesley Hirsch, medical assistant with an associate degree. And with any luck, my internet will hold up. That's great. Okay. So as you can see, hi, Lesley. Last time you were here, right, you put in medical assistant, and I've been a medical assistant since 2015, and I have an associate degree. I'd like to go ahead and go in and find out what I can do. I'm going to visit the navigator. And as you can see right now, the way this is organized is it's organized for people who are changing careers. I think I will show you that PowerPoint slide again in a moment, because what we're building out at the moment is an opportunity for more people to be able to use this. So for now, we'll look at people who are career changers. And I said I was a career changer, and I wasn't really sure how I wanted to change my career. I just wanted to know if you could tell me what actually uses my skills. And so here are a number of other possible occupations that I could go into: nursing assistant, respiratory therapist, cardiovascular technician. And I've gone ahead and rated all of them, said, yes, I'm interested, or no, I'm not. And as you can see, the recommendation engine is telling me why we're getting these results. So cardiovascular technician is saying it uses my skills. It also has a lot of jobs and it boosts my earnings. So I'm very interested in that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that. And you can see we have videos about each of these occupations. And then I can actually go right out to jobs and see what's available now and apply to those jobs. I can filter the jobs if I want to. Let's say I would like to filter the job by location. I'm going to go ahead and say Trenton, New Jersey. I'm a little bit blocked here, so I'm hoping I can navigate. And as it turns out, that's the only job anyway. So here's a lab technician job. And I presume that if I go into this job, I'm going to see a little bit more about cardiovascular technician requirements. I can also see what training is available for me if I want to become a cardiovascular technician. These are giving me results based on a research data lake that we've assembled at the Department of Labor using a machine learning model that maximizes the ROI. I don't know why I'm getting professional golf turf management, but I can tell you now that I'm happy we're still in beta testing because I'll certainly report that anomaly. I can go back and I can see the skills that I've populated on the website. And I've said that I can do phlebotomy. I have expertise in electronic health records, healthcare management, medical billing. And let's say I would like to add something here. Actually, they're telling me that I can add, these are the two most common ones I can add. So I'm going to go ahead and add vital signs. I'm not sure that's going to change my job opportunities, but let's go back and see if that's true. Actually, it just gave me, these are the jobs that are, or the careers that are available. I'm sorry, jobs that are available. I can also go into the ratings area and see where I've rated jobs that were career paths that were interesting to me or not interesting to me. I will go back right now to the PowerPoint because I think I've thoroughly confused everybody and I don't want to do that. In this slide, it's showing that when I go into, when I go into the Career Navigator, I'm going to be able to say, I'm interested in my same career, or I'm interested in opportunities in a new career. And if it's in a new career, the experience that you just saw will be that. It offers the career path, what jobs, what training is available, and all of those recommendations, again, come from machine learning models using our research data lake. If I choose I want to work in the same career, which is what most people will be doing, then we're going to have the opportunity to get jobs and training recommendations. This New Jersey Career Central, the next stage after we finish and we publicly launch the 1.0 is to connect it on the back end to our unemployment insurance system. So unemployment insurance claimants are going to be sent directly here for help with training, jobs, and career path opportunities. I did want to just recognize the partners that we've had here. And as you notice, Rachel, your Credential engine is right up there. We were funded by Schmidt Futures and Lumina Foundation to begin with, and the state has taken over. the funding. And our software and design partners are the three at the bottom. Office of Innovation, that's the Governor's Office of Innovation, Ripple, Research Improving People's Lives, and Fearless. Thanks so much, Rachel, for having me.
Thank you, Lesley. We are so happy to see the work that you have been doing and really look forward to seeing the product when it becomes available. And thank you for joining us all the way across the world in Germany today.
You're very welcome. And I will answer a question that I see. I wonder how much of your action plan could be used by other states. I should have told you that we embrace open data as well. And so all of our code, not just the data, but all of the code is open code on a GitHub account, and it's intended to be shared with other states. So we'd love to talk with other states as soon as we go live.
Thank you, Lesley. I'm now excited to also welcome to our virtual stage representatives from the state of Texas. Tiffani, Tatum, and Kerry Ballast are joining us to talk about the credential transparency work that is happening in Texas. So as Tiffani and Kerry get promoted and pinned to our screen, I'll introduce them. Tiffani Tatum is the Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives at the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, and Kerry Ballast is the Deputy Division Director of Workforce Education at the Texas Workforce Commission. Thank you both for being here today.
Hi, Rachel. Good to see you, and greetings from Texas.
Yes. Hello, everyone.
So in Texas, your two agencies, the Workforce Commission and the Higher Education Coordinating Board, along with the Education Agency, make up something called the Tri-Agency Workforce Initiative. Could you tell us more about this initiative?
Sure. I'm happy to get started, and Kerry, feel free to jump in. So as Rachel mentioned, there are three agencies involved. Our three agencies are the Texas Workforce Commission, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, and the Texas Education Agency. The Texas Education Agency, just for reference, is our K-12 entity. So essentially, the focus is really on kind of that entire student journey, that takes place from kindergarten all the way until they get into the workforce. So I think there was just a recognition that while we are all serving at different points, it's still the same person at different points in that journey, and that it's just important that we all work collaboratively to ensure that we're focused on the overall success of that individual going forward. The tri-agency, as a name, kind of speaks to how we work together. Each of the commissioners across those three different agencies coming together collaboratively, focused on a number of strategic initiatives that have some amount of value and importance to all of our agencies as a whole, of which Credential, building out the credential repository, is one of them. I'm going to hand it over to Kerry to speak a little bit more about some of the legislative components that inform the tri-agency, but that is part of it.
Thank you. So the tri-agency work actually goes back, gosh, I want to say to 2016. And it originally started with our governor, who brought the three agencies together and said, bring education and workforce together. And in doing so, bring yourselves together and work together. So for many of those years, we've worked under the governor's direction. In the last legislative session, which was in 2021, legislation was passed that put the tri-agency initiative into state statute and directed us to continue our work, but on a more formal level. And then, interesting note, part of that legislation said that we should work together to create a credential repository, credential library. So I'm not sure if the bill authors knew where we were headed with that, but that is one of the reasons, one of the many reasons that we have landed working with Credential Engine.
Thanks, Kerry and Tiffani. I like that you recognized and really identified the working together collaboratively on strategic initiatives, because many of the states that Credential Engine partners with is really to support the state goals and initiatives that you have. And we're happy to be partnering with you on the development of a state credential library. I'd love for both of you to speak about how credential transparency and the development of this credential repository really aligns to the specific goals of your agencies, and also how it will be supporting learners, workers, and really employers across Texas.
Tiffani, how about I go first? We'll just,
Right.
okay. Well, I will tell you this, in the recognition that we see all of these customers at some point being in all of our institutions. We know they all start in K-12. At some point, whether it's out of K-12 or after a little bit of work experience after leaving K-12, they end up in our colleges and universities, and then all along the way there's workforce. And so that's number one. I think one of the reasons we're working towards this and working on this one single goal together is, number one, lessons learned in the pandemic. We're seeing amazing shifts in skills and what those skills can do for individuals as they move from one job to the next, whether that's out of necessity or just interest and pursuit of a new career or a new career pathway. And when you look at the work across our three agencies, we are awash. We are just in a sea of credentials being issued, whether it's from our colleges, our high schools, our universities, our workforce training, our eligible training providers. And when you look at that, there are many overlaps there. Of course, we should work together. Over half of our, roughly half of our eligible training providers are our colleges. And so we should definitely be working together to bring that, to bring our two worlds together, to understand how we both use the colleges in different ways and what they're doing for us in workforce preparation. I loved watching New Jersey's demonstration. I mean, that's where we're headed to. Once we get our arms around the credentials and what is being made available to Texas, not only in the public space of our agencies, but we also have projects going on where private businesses and privately based industries are starting to add to the credential library too. We want anyone, a parent, an incumbent worker, a high school student, someone who's been laid off, to see the options available to them and to be able to use the library to not only see what's available to them across the state or in their area, but also what would work best for them. As my chairman put it, he said, imagine I have $100 and I have decided to use that $100 to improve my stance economically by looking at what's available in the next career. I need to decide where that $100 is spent best. And that's what we're aiming for.
So I would just add for, on the coordinating board, much like Kerry has mentioned, and kind of going back to the presentation from New Jersey, we very much see the need to be able to get the information in the hands of those pursuing, pursuing a way to advance their career, to improve their upward mobility, and credentials really are one way to do it. For the coordinating board, we've recently revamped our strategic plan. In that revamping process, there is a huge emphasis on this idea of credentials of value. I think historically, anytime we think about sort of higher education and kind of that space, the idea is always on this emphasis around bachelorate degrees or, master's degrees and so forth. But there's becoming this understanding that there are other ways and there are alternative pathways to success, either independently or in kind of in coordination with a bachelor's degree, right? Because I think, as we all know, even coming out of a bachelor's program, sometimes you don't necessarily have the skills to immediately go into the workforce. So being armed with both serves a value, as well as just being armed with one independent of itself. Now, as we talk about and think about this idea of credentials of value and our own strategic plan, what we've recognized is that we don't know what we don't know. While we speak about it, we are still very much in the throes of defining what a credential of value actually is and what it means in the state of Texas. As Kerry mentioned, there are so many credentials that are being offered across the state from different people and from different entities. We also recognize that from the employer perspective, there's this need to be able to have some way to legitimize specific credentials and to have some amount of confidence in the credential programs themselves, and that people who complete them are coming out with the appropriate skill set that they need. So there's also sort of that undercurrent in the work that we're doing as we all try across the tri-agencies to get a handle on this on those various credentials, is being able to not only help individuals seeking to pursue a credential, but also to help the employers as they think about how they hire against some of these particular credentials. The other piece that I would just add is, as we think about how we put the information in the hands of people, there's a number of tools that we're also trying to get off the ground as an agency that will help people with that kind of searching functionality and that understanding of what's being offered across their area. So the credential repository and the work that we're doing now is going to have several sort of reaching impacts within the agency beyond just kind of getting the repository stood up.
Great, thank you. And I certainly know that in our months of working together, looking at the data you have, mapping it to our CTDL, our common data language, is really going to be a critical and useful piece of this work, so that information about credentials, whether they reside from the public colleges and universities to even those private providers, can now be put together with that common language, so information can be searched, it can be accessible, it can be compared across data systems.
Yeah.
I know as we've worked with the tri-agencies, you've really all identified a need to collect more data on credentials. Can you each speak to some of the unique challenges and hurdles that you faced in this project? And Tiffani, we could start with you.
Yep. Real quickly before I jump into it, I can see that it seems like there are questions that are popping up in the chat. I don't know if it's better to answer them as they go, or Rachel, if you want to kind of moderate the questions at the end, or I just want to acknowledge that we see them and we will get to them at some point. Okay. So going back to the question that you just asked around some of the unique challenges and this idea of collecting data on credentials. As I mentioned before, it's this idea of not knowing what we don't know, and recognizing that there's a dearth of credentials out there. But as an agency, we need to get our hands around what's happening within our public institutions specifically. So one of the things that the approach that we took as we thought about how we could understand the landscape and how we could begin the process of data collection was to start with a pilot program of sorts. And the pilot program itself was going to be, we recently wrapped it up, an incentive-based program where we kind of put a call out across our public institutions, asking them to participate in the pilot. The intent of this pilot was to understand what data is already out there across our institutions. We asked a few specific questions, but in a lot of ways left it a little bit open-ended, because again, there were some things we just didn't know specifically to ask for. So the first part of it was asking about data in general. We again left it open and said, basically give us what you have. However, based on what our minimum data policy was that we developed in collaboration with Credential Engine, we shared with them, here's some of the key areas we're looking for, but don't get too bogged down in these specifics. Again, give us what you have. The second part that we asked them for was to help us understand the specific lift that was involved in gathering this data. I think we can all agree that across just sort of the public sphere, everyone is being asked to do so much more with so much less. So as we thought about taking this to scale, we wanted to be able to not only respect what were some of those key sort of challenges, but also really be realistic in terms of what we were asking longer term in terms of the timeline to turn around the information and also the specifics around what we were asking them to provide us. The last part of our specific ask was speaking to the challenges, right? What were some of the roadblocks that they faced in trying to get the data to us? And we asked them point blank, please also let us know if we're part of that roadblock as an agency, because we recognize, again, that there are certain other things that we may be asking of them that could feel a little bit contradictory to what we were asking now and could sort of bottleneck their approach to getting that information from them. So we were really excited about what we might get back. And I will say, while we're still sort of combing through some of the data of what we've received, we've been pretty excited about just sort of the dearth of information they've been able to provide us and just their transparency on those latter two questions for that. Now, one thing that did come out of that was even the schools themselves saying, look, we didn't even realize that there were that many credentials being offered across some of our areas. So we're learning that this is very much going to be a learning process that is going to have to be done in collaboration with our institutions and with other agencies to ensure that we're able to take this ultimately to scale and collect some of this information. I would say just the last thing I would add is, a lot of times sort of legislative pieces will inform what some of our future asks are. So we'll be looking towards this legislative session to understand what are going to be some of those impacts. We fully expect there to be some on our community colleges. So thinking about how we can leverage what comes out of that to help kind of further incentivize some of the asks that we have of the institutions, but then also just thinking longer term, how do we wrap it into some of our existing collection processes so it doesn't feel like it's a disjointed approach, and it doesn't feel like we're asking them to do something more than once in different formats as well.
Okay, Rachel, I'll jump in, but I want to do a time check. Are you going to, I can talk fast, you can cut me off, whatever you need to do. Okay.
We have about 5 minutes. So if you want to give us a little perspective from the Workforce Commission, and then I'll follow up with one final question for you.
Okay. Well, I would say that what I have learned from all of this is I feel like right now we're in the midst of quantity. It's like the first year is all about quantity. I'm looking forward to what's ahead when we start talking about quality. And just as one of our attendees pointed out, yes, not necessarily the credential itself, but the pathways that individuals are following us. We're a huge, our state supports registered apprenticeships just at an amazing pace. And we're seeing registered apprenticeships spring up very quickly in Texas. We are always tracking how much of that work articulated into a certificate at a college or a degree or an advanced degree. And so these are things that we're wanting to know. And then again, just to go back to that idea, was there anything along the way that made the difference? Was there just that one other thing that elevated salary or made someone more employable in another industry? And so like my mantra right now is we're working on the quantity, and we're headed for the quality of it.
Great, thank you, Kerry.
Mhm.
You know, as we've worked with the tri-agencies, we really have been mapping a lot of your cross-agency data using the CTDL. You know, obviously that information is going to be published to the registry. And that's really just one step in how information on training opportunities, whether they be credentials, whether they're apprenticeships, will really be shared with Texas residents. I know that some of your use cases also really speak to pathways. And Kerry, you just spoke about, you know, the steps that an individual might take and to get to their education and employment goals. Could you just each speak really briefly on what's on the horizon for how you intend or really to hope to use all of this data to signal to students and workers and learners what's possible, and for employers to understand what credentials can help support the in-demand jobs that they have in their regional economies?
I'll go in briefly. I'm going to go back to this idea of quality. With coordinating board's idea of credentials of value, I see that one of our next, we will start applying, I'm going to use the term filters here just because it's kind of a nice safe word to use here, but we will start learning either through feedback from our employers, what kind of filters should we be putting in there to really get to what are the best pathways for individuals? What are the most desired pathways for our employers? What credentials earned along the way make the difference between a $17 an hour and a $19 an hour job? Just things like that. So we see that coming. I'd also say big picture, we want to get down to the individual level. Again, we're looking big picture right now, but we truly do want to begin to consider the individual, where he or she started, where they're headed, and what made the difference along the way, as far as the schools they attended, the training they attended, the credentials earned, and if it really in the long run was what the employer was looking for.
Yeah. So I would say there are probably two big things that are top of mind for us as we think about this data. So the first one touched on a little bit before, but around creating tools that are that are public facing, that provide access to information and help improve the ability of the individual to make choices and make decisions about how they proceed in their and how that impacts their career trajectory. The second thing I would say is, as we think about credentials across the state and this idea of credentials of value, we're hoping that this type of information will also help inform what programs get developed at our specific institutions. And even beyond that, as they really think about what programs are currently being offered, does it make sense to continue offering those if they don't really provide a clear path and ensure some upward mobility and opportunity for their students when they're coming out of it? I would say maybe lastly too, I said two things, but maybe three. Maybe lastly too is this idea about how we partner with our employers, both local as well as at a national kind of level. I will say I know that UT system in particular is working quite closely with Google, with the Grow with Google program and their Google certificate program as just another layer of offerings. And that's really based on demand. So getting the information in the hands of all those decision makers to help them make choices that improve opportunities for all Texans.
Well, a warm thank you to you, Kerry, and to you, Tiffani. We really look forward to our continued partnership with the Texas Tri-Agencies in helping you develop this Texas repository. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure, and happy anniversary, Credential Engine. We'll see you soon, Rachel. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Bye-bye.
And as we close out our conversations and spotlights on states, I just want to let you know that New Jersey and Texas represent just 2 of the 29 states and regions who Credential Engine is proud to support in their credential transparency work. Next slide. State leaders are in a really unique position to prioritize credential transparency and align it to the ongoing efforts to meet current and workforce needs, state post-secondary attainment goals, equity goals, and to describe credentials of value, all initiatives that you've heard our panelists speak about today. Next slide. Credential Engine actually created a roadmap and action guide to chart the path forward to credential transparency within states. To do so effectively, states need to create systems where credentials are easily accessible, where they're comparable and connected to other critical education and workforce data to make sure that we're creating pathways from education and training that lead to careers and advancement. Finally, important information on credentials must be communicated so that they serve everyone. Transparency is about placing data and opportunity into the hands of stakeholders so they can use this information to take action. Next slide. The roadmap actually consists of 6 main categories that can help move states from awareness to enduring action. This summer, we asked all of our state partners across the country to rate their progress around these steps using a 3-point rating system. A score of 1 represents that work is just starting, a score of 2 means that efforts are underway, and a score of 3 is reflective of established practices within a state. Starting with understanding the value, this work is obviously underway. The mission and value of credential transparency is highly aligned to state strategic plans, goals, and related initiatives. And for states and prospective partners joining us for the first time today, you are beginning your journey along the roadmap. States recognize the importance of clear and coordinated communication to provide credentials and pathway information to all stakeholders. And states really celebrated the work that they have been doing to make rich data available, such as data on costs, financial aid, accreditation, and other outcomes data on employment, occupations, and wages to really support the use cases identified in this work. And as we have heard, credential transparency shouldn't happen in a silo. States have made strong progress and see clear alignment in linking their credential transparency efforts to other higher education, access, affordability, quality, and equity goals. Once states make the case and the connection to existing state goals, the next step on the roadmap is to inventory their credentials and publish using the CTDL. Work is very much underway as states publish credentials using CTDL. However, some states pointed out that more work could be done on making competencies available as linked open data. And the roadmap reminds us that we cannot stop there. For meaningful credential transparency, we also have to turn data into actionable information that allows for real-time data exploration and understanding of pathways. Whether it's tools to help career and education opportunities or to view important information about credentials and their outcomes, states are committed to getting clear, consistent, and reliable information into the hands of learners and workers. And our last step on the roadmap is to build long-lasting commitment. Credential transparency must be embedded in policy and practice across systems to ensure sustainability, alignment, and impact. This last year has brought several wins among states, and we look for more in the years to come. Credential Engine, through our suite of tools and partnerships, stands ready to support your credential transparency goals. Next slide. And speaking of partners, we are excited to showcase just some of the exemplary projects of our states and business partners, including the services that support credential transparency. You will find over a dozen narratives, video demonstrations, and opportunities to see how the CTDL and the registry is empowering people to achieve their education and career goals. Again, thanks to our presenters from New Jersey and Texas, and to all of our state partners.